Well, good morning, good evening to you, whoever you are, wherever you are. It's my favorite time of night when everybody else is asleep and I don't want to talk and wake them up. So I'm out in my truck again doing my broadcasts. And today was quite an interesting day on the markets. Dow dropping 372 points, and in the early hour trading in the morning, the Dow futures was dropping over 150 points. So, um, boy, am I glad that I started shorting the markets. I've been telling you guys that the markets are going to start doing that. It's possible they may not continue, that the central banks will come in and buy up the Dow and kind of support it so that it doesn't crash right away. And it's possible that we are just typically in a usual sell pattern in the stock market where the saying goes, sell in May and go away. Everything's kind of in a bubble. I feel, you've had since Donald Trump was elected, you got the stock market just rallying, 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 rallying. So it's probably time for a correction. Another thing that could be a possibility is I just recently put out, I think it was last night even, or maybe the night before, I put out the video. No, it was yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, I put out the video about the Canadian real estate market collapsing and how there are bank runs going on, and how, since we're in a globalized world because of Democrats and liberals that want to hold hands with everybody and not vet things and not keep themselves safe from harm, they expose everybody to the same dangers. It's possible that that could bleed over into our markets very soon too if the Canadians don't bail out their banks. So it's possible that this could be the beginning of that. But either way, no matter what it is, ultimately I believe our markets are just artificially propped up by the Federal Reserve, who's been just buying assets since President Obama came in. And since the Federal Reserve tends to lean to the left because they are control freaks, and leftists are control freaks, um, they wanted to support the markets so that Obama would look good. But ever since Obama was elected, you can go back on all my posts on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Although I don't use Twitter that much because I just honestly I think Twitter is just annoying to me. I can do all the same things on these other platforms, and now especially on Steemit. I was saying that the economy was just false. The recovery, there was no recovery. Obama talking about shovel-ready jobs. Yeah, we haven't seen shovel-ready jobs. Most of the job growth, was in the government, and Trump is actually starting to see that because a lot of the job growth in the government were Obama people. So when Trump took over, he's got a lot of Obama people in the government leaking information, creating false narratives and lies. Uh, I find it very interesting now that this Seth Rich, the former DNC or Democratic National Committee chair staffer who was murdered, and they didn't complete an investigation during the campaign because he's connected to the Democratic National Committee, and Hillary Clinton was running for president. Uh, there's new information that he was actually murdered, and that he wasn't robbed, and it wasn't a botched robbery as the police were saying. How coincidental it is that the Democrats are trying to push this Trump collusion drama. Still no evidence, still nothing. And they're trying to now say that Trump tried to obstruct justice by telling Comey to lay off and let it go. But honestly, that's not even a directive. He wasn't giving a command. So it's more like a suggestion. It's like, could you let it go? That kind of thing. It's not that's not really a command. So I don't see anything happening there. They're trying to push something so they can create this impeachment trial for President Trump, and at the same time cover up again all their crimes. Man, if you support the Democrats and you admit it openly to me that you're a liberal and you support Democrats, man, you've just revealed how much of a criminal you are with all this information that we know about Hillary Clinton and about what the Democrats do and all the coincidental murders and deaths of people. Uh, during the campaigns and during periods of time when people were going to announce, like Andrew Breitbart was going to announce that he was going to expose information that would completely destroy President Obama, and coincidentally the next day or the day before he exposes Obama, he dies. It was either the day before or 2 days before. Too coincidental. And all these other people connected to Hillary Clinton that have information that could have destroyed her political career and put her in prison immediately. They all disappear or they die, and it's ruled suicide or accidental death or botched robberies, and all the same claims with no evidence to actually to support those kinds of claims, which is typical of Democrats. They say things that have no evidence. Like the liberal media also will make claims about Trump citing anonymous sources. How can you cite anonymous sources? And that's just ridiculous. There's no evidence. They're generating all this stuff. But anyway, all of this drama and rigmarole about impeachment, even the Seth Rich murder stuff, I mean, I find this is just a distraction to what potentially is really, really serious, and they don't want anybody preparing about. I'm not even sure. I don't watch television news, so I don't know what they're reporting to people on the TV, but, I talk to my family, and a lot of them like to watch the television media, the established fake news media, and they don't even know what's going on in Canada about this bank run. And probably even if they did, it's not so widely reported. It's just probably brushed over to the point where they just think, oh, it's a bank run, it'll be solved in a day. They don't really understand what a bank run is and why people are running and taking their money out of a bank. Same thing that happened in 2008. So I did that report on history, and this is a follow-up to it. But boy, am I glad I started shorting the market. So I think I'm going to take some profits tomorrow, or at least bring up my stops so that if the market continues to plummet, I'll be able to follow it up, to trail it up, and continue to make money. But like I've been telling you guys, man, a lot of my calls have been on point to readdress the history thing. Like I said, back in 2008, I had ideas based on my studies, my education, and my experience as a financial investor and advisor and researcher and historian of what assets were going to do in 2008, even though it was kind of unprecedented. And I made certain investments that made money. I made certain investments that I thought would make money, and they didn't. But boy, did I observe, and and study what was going on, so that I would have an understanding of what it might be like in the future. Because people continue to repeat history, like I said in my other video. And as they continue to repeat history, the same mistakes happen. And if you're smart, you'll capitalize on those idiots. I mean, you will learn that, they're going to endanger you. So you'll start positioning yourself in ways to profit from it and to protect yourself from the major disaster that's going to come as a result of it. So, like I continue to tell you guys, prepare. If you don't have a firearm, the Democrats want to take firearm rights away from us because they label us as violent, uncaring individuals. And they want to make it so that the Second Amendment is an obsolete amendment in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, to allow us to, in the Constitution, to allow us to bear arms. Well, don't allow them to do that. Time does not change the fact that you will need to defend yourself. That never ever changes. The weapons may change, but the fact that you need to defend yourself never ever changes. Whether it's a knife, I mean, honestly, a lot of these Democrats don't show you the reality of what a knife can do. Honestly, I'd rather be shot by a gun than stabbed and slashed by a psycho with a knife. Some of you need to go search out some of those videos. They're graphic. I'll warn you. There's blood everywhere and stuff. A knife is way more dangerous to me than a gun, because you got to be in range to use it. And if you're in range to use it, I mean, the devastation you can cause with it is just unimaginable. With a gun, I mean, if you can't aim, you're not going to hit anything. You're using a little cartridge that has a little bullet round that comes out, and you have to really hit something with this traveling at about 1,000 feet per second. Good luck. Most people can't do it. Most people can't hit the side of a barn with the barn doors closed and they're inside. So, I mean, when they say that they should take our gun rights, I think that's ridiculous. But I do believe you should have one, even if you can't hit anything with it. But you should train with it as well. And because the mere fact is, when a criminal comes face to face with you and you pull that dark tool and point it at them with the barrel, they know exactly what that is, and they know exactly what could happen. They know that, even if it's a 6 foot, 300 pound bad guy looking like Bigfoot, and you're a little old lady, you can that's the great equalizer. The great equalizer is the firearm. So that you don't even have to fire it for them to start running. But like, there are precautions. Don't just shoot people. You need to really train the laws and when to use it and how to defend yourself, so that you know when to pull that trigger, how to pull that trigger, so that you can effectively de-escalate, uh, dispatch, or just end a confrontation without your going to jail. Because you can actually be a murderer too if you pull the trigger on the wrong person at the wrong time. Like if they're running away from you, there's no need to defend yourself when the bad guy's running away. It's if the guy's running at you and he's trying to kill you and you feel threatened, that's the time to use a gun. So even though I say that, that's the first way to prepare. The other reason why I like firearms is, let's say hypothetically, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's say hypothetically, all hell breaks loose and society collapses, and civility goes out the window, and criminality increases because of people being so desperate, and they start going from house to house to house trying to look for stuff to survive, and your house happens to have stuff in it. It's good to have a firearm there because you're going to need it in that kind of situation. Laws will not protect you at that moment because law and order has collapsed when people are starting to behave like that. It's the Walking Dead, basically, where there's no governmental structure except for the tribe that you belong to. And I honestly don't think it's going to get to that point, but in reality, I view things from the perspective of a general and a soldier. When you see potential risk in the future, you should start to prepare for the absolute worst scenario. Not because you're negative, but you're trying to cover all the angles just in case it happens. Because really, to be happy like a liberal and go around clapping all day and dancing with your friends, thinking that life's always going to be good, and then finally disaster hits, you're really going to be crying if you're a sensitive snowflake when you can't feed yourself and your money is worthless and you can't go to the store because the shelves are empty. You're really going to be crying. So the reality of it is, you need to be realistic and start preparing for those kind of eventualities. The other thing is, you need to have cash. Even though I believe cash is going to become worthless at some point, or devalued significantly at least, it's good to have cash because then you can buy things still. It's good to have a little bit of gold and silver, but like I've covered in other videos, gold and silver, if the dollar goes in the toilet, gold and silver are going to go to the moon in terms of their value when it comes to buying things. So good luck trying to buy a bottle of milk if you can find it, or some fruits from your neighbor with a big fat bar of gold. Ain't gonna happen. They're not gonna be able to make change. What kind of trade will that be? You're gonna give them a whole bar of gold for a couple peaches? Nah, it's not a fair exchange. So again, you need to have cash. I also recommend those junk rounds. I'm not really giving investment advice. I say recommend because that's the way I do things. I recommend them to myself, and then I act upon it. I go and I study, and I go and I carry out my plans. I study, I present a plan, and then I carry it out. And I suggest that's the way it goes. So, because seriously, what we saw in 2008 was really, really bad. We could have had a major, major global economic meltdown. But they stole taxpayer monies. And if you have any money and you pay taxes, you are the taxpayer. They stole taxpayer money to bail out the banking system in order to get it to look like it's okay again. I mean, they dumped trillions of dollars into that system, and they still are dumping trillions of dollars in the system. They're using derivatives to amp up the effect of those trillions of dollars because they know it's so bad. And they're at a point where that's starting to run out of steam. Pardon my pun, since I'm on steemit.com at CryptoFur with a PH, not an F, CryptoFur at steemit.com. please follow me on Steemit, and I'll probably post this on both Steemit and Facebook, since Instagram will not be able to handle this long, lengthy discussion. But anyway, the real estate market up in Canada is ugly. And it may have started out with the Chinese coming in, leaving the mainland China, because there was a new election, and typically you have parties, right? And in China, parties are not like in the U.S., although U.S. is starting to get this way with the politics I'm seeing. But in China, they'll murder everybody on the opposite side of the political spectrum. It's just like my ancestry in the Philippines. You look at politics in the Philippines, it's dirty, 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 dirty politics. I mean, even family members, when they run against each other, whoever sides with this family member and whoever sides with this family member are at odds with each other. So let's say this family member wins, they'll assassinate everyone on this side of their own families to win politics. Politics is so important to them. So we're starting to see that all around the world, and especially in the United States, which is so disheartening, because as a constitutional republic, the United States is supposed to have civil politics. But the Democrats have convinced everyone that we are not a republic, we are a democracy. And so they're trying to undermine the Constitution, and they're doing a pretty bang-up job of it right now. And guess who suffers? We, the American people, suffer when they, instead of focusing on solutions to help us all, they're constantly hunting Donald Trump or other Republicans to just destroy their political careers and to try to enhance their own. So, I mean, if you're a wise person, you'll see that. And really, you shouldn't be supporting Democrats. You'll be supporting criminals. But anyway, back to the Chinese. So when they have those political factions, as soon as one gets elected, the other faction needs to leave the country real soon, or they're all going to die. And so that's what happened with the election of Xi Jinping. They say it kind of weird. I don't speak Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, so I can't really pronounce it. But I think it's Xi Jinping. With his election, a lot of the former party members left, and they justified it to the communist government that they were sending their kids to other countries, and they were spending on their education. And likewise, when you send your kids to college, they got to have a place to stay. So they justified by laundering more of their Chinese money by buying real estate. So initially, the real estate market was brought back to life after the collapse of 2008 by the Chinese leaving their country. And they have cash. They don't use credit. Chinese use cash. They pay for things in cash. They don't even believe in credit cards. I was at a Chinese restaurant with traditional Chinese people there, and I understand a little bit of Cantonese and some Mandarin, not enough to speak it, but I used my debit card, which was not a credit card. It was a debit card to pay for my lunch at the time. This was a number of years ago when I could actually speak Chinese better and understand it better. And I noticed a family at another table saw that I had just paid with plastic, and they started immediately talking about this American man, this American man paying with fake money. They don't have any money. They use their credit cards to pay things. Yep, and my video yesterday was about that, keeping up with the Joneses. If you look back at the neighborhood example I gave of the keeping up with the Joneses, and the Joneses are the successful family on that neighborhood, China is the Joneses family on that neighborhood. And everybody else spending on credit, money they don't have, are the people trying to keep up with them. If you prefer keeping up with the Kardashians, go ahead, use that example. It's the same thing, because it's all stupidity. People spending money they don't have in order to keep up with people that they are not willing to match their work in order to have the things that they have. They just want to spend the money to get it. And credit cards are a perfect example of that. And credit is a perfect example of that. So the banks in Canada would love that. I mean, typically in the 80s, when I was young, I wasn't investing at that time because I was still a little kid, but I know the history of the 80s and how housing properties increased. Typically, when you would borrow to get a loan from the bank to buy a house, the bank looked at your credit, your capability, and your character before they would even give you a loan, and you had to put 20% of the value of the house down as a down payment from your own pocket before they would issue the remainder of the loan the balance of the loan in order to purchase the house. Canada is now allowing people to buy homes with 1.5% down. They've been doing it already for a couple of years now. So can you only imagine, you want to buy $1 million home and you put down $15,000 to as your down payment to get $1 million home. There's no way in hell you're going to pay off that loan. But the bankers want to make money. They're predators. This is why Jesus in the Bible attacked the money changers, because that's what bankers are. They change money. They exchange money and they change money. They will take your valuable money and they'll give you back crap in change. So basically they take all your money. These are the same people that support politicians financially who talk about redistribution of wealth. They try to sell communism to you because bankers make the most money out of communist societies. And so when you support communist type people and you consider yourself anti-fascist, you're really a retarded person, because fascism is controlling other people. Hey Joy, what's up? I just saw you on here. I got on a little mind frame. Tax is the hidden way to slavery. You're absolutely right. And an even more hidden way to tax people is to inflate their currency. So if you have a dollar bill, you get your dollar bill because you did labor. You did some kind of production that generated wealth. It created wealth. And by creating wealth, then your dollar is then created. What inflation is a banking system that can now control the supply of dollars. And they can print it anytime without any work having to be done. So if you have a dollar in your pocket and the bank over here decides to print another dollar, your dollar just went down by half. The value of it just went down by half. Why is that? Because if you have a dollar, it has 100% of value. And if someone creates another dollar here, half of that value has to now go to the other dollar in order to support the value of that other dollar. So let's say now the banks want to bail out, the central banks want to bail out these commercial banks or too big to fail banks who are, creating these loans that they can't afford to support and people can't pay back. They'll just print money. They print it in the trillions. Guess what's going to happen to the dollar in your pocket? Gone. Bye. Adios. See ya. Later. So, these are the things I'm talking about. You got to prepare. Prepare. Hopefully you understand. Some of the topics I bring up are a little bit complex. So the more you listen to them, the more you'll understand them, the better decision making you'll make. So, yeah, I'm happy I shorted the market. I've been talking about it for about a month now, and I started 2 weeks ago shorting the market. I even mentioned it in a couple videos back that I'm thinking of slowly starting to short the market. And the few shorts that I put on, I'm glad I did, because that market drop really benefited my portfolio. The rest of my portfolio is still doing well, so I'm happy. But I know there's a time when the other stuff, because I'm heavily into bonds. I invested into bonds in 2011-ish, and they have just really gone up because there's a bond bubble too. So there are bubbles everywhere, and they're just looking for a pin to pop them. I'm a little bit more advanced in my investing, so I know how to take advantage of those situations. And that's why I'm trying to tell people, stop putting your head in the sand. Stop buying the liberal thing of, we need to be optimistic and look forward instead of being pessimistic and trying to, stop the progress that's going on. What progress? Do you feel richer? Are the progressive Democrats really making you feel richer? Think about that. There may be people like George Soros, these international financiers that try to bring money into this country and pay you to protest. But is that really making you richer? It may give you money in your pocket now, but if that, let's say it pays you $15,000 to go protest, but then tomorrow the money's worthless, did you really make any money? Because all you're doing is when you're going into the streets and blocking them, is you're just shutting down commerce. You're shutting down the economy, because the streets are like your arteries and your veins. You shut down your arteries and your veins in your body, you know what happens, right? If you get a blockage by your heart, you die. get a blockage in your brain, you die. So, I mean, the same thing goes for the economy. It's not that complex. Don't let anyone tell you it is. All right, anyway, I once again wanted to make a 5-minute video. Probably ended up being 30 minutes, but I just want to let you guys know, be prepared. Hopefully this is just sell in May and go away and come back before Memorial Day or whatever the saying is. I forgot the saying, but it's come back in another time. And so investors are like selling off and waiting, holding cash to see if they have a better opportunity to buy in. I hope that's the case, but it may not be, just because of what's going on globally and the crappy economy worldwide. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best, okay? God love you, and I'll see you guys on all the other platforms. Take care.